You ever notice how every generation thinks they've cracked the stock market? Like, oh, we're smarter now. We have AI, we have charts, we have Reddit. Yeah. Tell that to the guy who bought Tesla at $400 and still calls it a long-term hold. See, there's a reason history keeps replaying itself in the markets. It's because humans have the attention span of a goldfish when money's involved. Legendary investor Sir John Templeton once said the four most expensive words in the English language are, "This time it's different." And he's right. Welcome to Billionomics, where dollars finally make sense. Templeton wasn't kidding either. The man averaged 15% annual returns for 38 years. So when he says something's expensive, he means your portfolio is about to go on life support. Because nothing drains a brokerage account faster than blind optimism wearing a suit and tie, which brings us to Jesse Livermore, the original stock market legend. Jesse Livermore is basically the godfather of modern trading. He was the main inspiration for the famous investing book Reminiscences of a Stock Operator, which every wannabe trader keeps on their shelf but never actually finishes. He made and lost fortunes so many times that it felt like a sport. Livermore became famous for shorting the market during crashes, including the Panic of 1907 and the 1929 Great Depression. While everyone else was losing everything, Jesse was sitting back like, "I told y'all not to buy at the top." And he left us with one of the most hauntingly accurate quotes in financial history. "There is nothing new in Wall Street. There can't be, because speculation is as old as the hills. Whatever happens in the stock market today has happened before and will happen again." And oh boy, was he right. Because history doesn't just rhyme, it copy-pastes itself. Everyone knows about the dot-com bubble and the 2008 financial crisis, but there's another bubble that's basically been erased from the collective memories, one that looks way too similar to what's happening right now. I'm talking about the Nifty 50 bubble of the early 1970s. When it popped, it was brutal. The market crashed 50%, inflation quadrupled, and it took 8 years for stocks to crawl back to where they were before. So let's rewind a bit. The late 1960s, America had just ridden a 20-year economic high after World War II. Factories were pumping, suburbs were popping up faster than pimples on prom night, and people believed the US was untouchable. Why wouldn't they? They'd just beaten the Nazis, landed a man on the moon, allegedly, and invented the Etch-a-Sketch. Life was good, money was flowing, confidence was sky high. And where there's money and confidence, there's always one thing waiting in the shadows: overconfidence. Because from 1945 to 1970, the US stock market rose over 350%, a massive bull run that made investors feel like geniuses. Then came the bright idea that kicked off the madness: a new kind of investment strategy called one-decision stocks. The concept was simple: find companies so dominant, so powerful, and so future-proof that you only ever have to make one decision: buy. Never sell. Ever. These can't-lose companies became known as the Nifty 50. And we're not talking about sketchy penny stocks. These were the blue-chip giants, and the companies like Coca-Cola, American Express, McDonald's, Polaroid investors believed these companies were bulletproof, as if nothing on earth could take them down. Selling them was considered heresy. You'd get laughed out of your country club for even thinking about it. But here's the thing about investing. If something sounds like a no-brainer, it's usually a financial grenade with the pin already pulled. By the early 1970s, the market had lost its mind. The average PE ratio for normal stocks was around 15. Reasonable, respectable, the kind of number you could take home to your parents. But the Nifty 50, they were trading like physics didn't apply. Coca-Cola, 46 times earnings, Xerox, 49 times McDonald's, 86 times Polaroid, 90 times. On average, the Nifty 50 stocks were trading at 42 times earnings. That's not investing, that's fan fiction. At one point, the top 5 Nifty 50 stocks made up 25% of the entire market, and collectively, the group made up 45% of the US stock market's value. Sound familiar? Hold that thought. Then came 1973 to 1974, and reality decided to punch everyone in the face. Oil prices quadrupled, inflation shot up from 3% to 11%, unemployment doubled from 4.5% to 9%. And President Nixon ended the gold standard for good. The result? The market collapsed 50%, marking the worst bear market since the Great Depression. And those one-decision stocks, they went from unstoppable to unrecognizable. Coca-Cola, minus 60%, McDonald's, minus 70%, Polaroid, minus 90%. It wasn't just a dip, It was a financial faceplant. And recovery? Forget it. The market didn't fully recover for 8 long years. Investors who thought they'd found eternal growth ended up in financial purgatory for almost a decade. Now let's fast forward to today. We've traded bell bottoms for iPhones, but the movie's got the same exact plot, same drama, just better special effects. Back in the early 70s, investors were obsessed with what they called the Nifty 50. 50 big-name stocks had everyone believed could do no wrong. These companies were the can't-miss picks, the kind your uncle swore he'd retire on. In 1972, those 50 companies made up a jaw-dropping 45% of the entire US stock market's value. That's half the market riding on 50 names. Now jump to 2025 and we're doing the same thing, just with fewer characters. Today, only 7 companies, Apple, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Meta, Tesla, and Nvidia, make up around 36% of the S&P 500. Yep, 7 companies. That's not a diversified market, that's a group project where only 7 kids are doing all the work and everyone else is just waiting for the grade. They're basically carrying the entire market on their backs like financial atlas statues, while the other 493 companies in the S&P are just vibes. Sound familiar? Because it should. Back then, it was Coca-Cola and Polaroid leading the hype. Now it's Nvidia and Tesla. Different players, same story, massive optimism, sky-high valuations, and everyone pretending the music will never stop. And just like the Nifty 50, the Magnificent 7 are priced like they'll dominate forever, until one day reality remembers to check the receipts. And just like in the 1970s, these modern giants are trading like gravity's optional. Google and Meta, 28 times earnings. Amazon, 35 times. Apple, 37 times. Microsoft, 38 times. Nvidia, 50 times. Tesla, a mild 247 times earnings. At that point, you're not buying stock, you're buying faith. Sure, these companies are innovative and dominant, but so were Xerox and Polaroid, until they weren't. Once again, investors are telling themselves the same bedtime story. These companies are untouchable. They'll grow forever. Every single time, people convince themselves, no, this is different. This time, the fundamentals have changed. The economy has evolved. We're in a new era. But as Warren Buffett famously said, what we learn from history is that people don't learn from history. And honestly, that quote hits harder than most stock crashes. Because right now, we're watching the same movie, like it just got remade in 4K. Back then, people were saying, you can't lose money on Coca-Cola. Now it's, you can't lose money on Apple. It's the same belief that certain companies are untouchable, unstoppable, and somehow immune to gravity. But markets always have a way of humbling that kind of thinking. When people start saying, this time it's different, that's usually the moment when it's exactly the same as before, just with flashier marketing and better Wi-Fi. Because at the end of the day, human behavior doesn't change. It just rebrands. But this time it's different, right? But hey, if you thought this market deja vu was wild, wait until you see what's happening in Washington. Our last video broke down the 2025 government shutdown, and trust me, that mess makes the stock market look organized. So check that one out next, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next episode of Billionomics.